Gen Xers are stoked because if someone thinks we're a millennial, that's a compliment.
Exactly.
We're thrilled. The people who get really upset about these pronouncements from Gen Z are millennials,
so
Jessie.
much.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to Mamma Mia Out Loud and to our Friday show where we take a break from the news cycle because holy hell it's scary out there. Deep breaths because today is Friday. It's the 31st of January and we are talking about other stuff. I am Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Friedman.
And I'm Jessie Stevens.
And on today's show, there's a new item of clothing that the finger-wagging trendsetters of Gen Z have assigned to TikTok's sartorial bin fire, and we think we know why. Also, a viral essay has reignited a debate about whether there's any such thing as an A for effort. Recommendations, which include a meal to eat while you're wearing your weighted vest, a movie that you'll sob through, and a TV show about bitches. And our very bests and worsts of the week. But first, Mia Friedman.
We're big fans of pettiness here on Mamma Mia Out Loud, or
Yeah.
maybe that's just me. But no, I think, Jessie, you're very petty. You like some pettiness.
Yeah, I do like a little bit of pettiness.
I think it's an underrated personality trait personally. Does being petty make you the bigger person? No, it makes you the smaller one. And sometimes that's okay. I'm excited to report that we've discovered a new form of petty behaviour that's even more petty than the regular kind. It's more subtle, it's smaller, and it's easier to miss, but it can still be deeply satisfying. In case you missed it, we learned about it via a viral tweet this week from a woman called Bex Luther, who wrote, "There's someone in our team who behaves horribly to me, and whenever I have to type his name, I've taken to using a slightly smaller font size than for everyone else's."
I love that.
I love it. Micro pettiness is pettiness via stealth.
Yes, and what I love about it is that it is a level of petty that makes the other person feel crazy. Because if I said to you guys, really weird, but every time Mia sends me an email, I swear she puts my name a little bit smaller.
You might not even notice.
Yeah, no,
You
it
might
would
not
make you
even
look
notice.
paranoid.
Yeah.
It would make you question your grasp on reality. But that means the person's really getting to you, and I love that.
We have asked Out Louders if they do any acts of micro pettiness, maybe in the workplace or in their life generally. Jessie, you've got one.
One Out Louder said that when someone in her family is really pissing her off, she'll go and sit in their usual seat. Like say there's a head of the table that someone normally sits in because it puts everyone a little off kilter.
Passag.
Yeah. How about you, Holly?
One of the Out Louders said, I tell my best friend if her boyfriend is being mean to her, she should just take small things from his house. Nothing important, just inconvenient. Like the base of his phone charger, leave the cord, just take the plug. One of the stove dials, only one. The little spinny thing under the plate in the microwave so it won't turn.
Yes.
One shoe, but leave the other. That's great. That
Oh,
falls
that's so
into that
good.
whole like, am I going crazy?
I love that.
I've got some examples from Out Louders of admin pettiness. One person says, I'll stop using exclamation marks when I talk to this person over email or Slack.
Yeah. It makes me feel like I'm being,
Yeah.
that is my peak rude, is when you get proper punctuation.
Yeah, someone else said that people often get her name wrong in emails, so she does the same back, calling them by their last name or spell their name wrong.
I realise that I have been guilty of micro pettiness in the last 24 hours. I do this often, which is when I get up in the middle of the night with our baby, which has been happening a bit lately, I will send my husband a text message about something that's not very urgent. But just say, I did it at 4:15. I went, we need milk. And it's like a marker of just going, I'm awake.
Just so you know.
Just so you know.
Do you know what I used to do? Every time I was annoyed with my husband, I'd take off my wedding ring.
That's not micro. That's just petty.
He never noticed. Obviously.
Noticed. I wish I was more of an evil genius. Maybe I'm going to try and develop that more
Yeah.
this year. Yeah, I'm not genius enough.
As the fashion correspondent on this show, I've come across some urgent news. I read an article this week on Mamma Mia that told me in no uncertain terms that I, a millennial, must bury yet another of my beloved staples. There was the eyeliner. Remember they came for my eyeliner?
Oh, your winged eyeliner?
Yep. Then they came for my skinny jeans. They came for my socks. Now I've got to wear
Side part.
Yep, my side
Your
part.
invisible socks.
Yep. And now I've got to wear the long ones. Now apparently we are doing bags wrong. So, Nicole Adolphe, who's the head of style at The Iconic, has declared the crossbody bag done. Interestingly, you know who I see wear a crossbody bag more than anyone else? Is this lady who thinks she's a fashion icon, Mia over here.
Although she wears like a cross phone strap thing a lot.
I wear everything cross,
Yes.
and it's for reasons of feminism and also disorganisation, because I tend to lose things.
Yes, right.
Keeps your hands free.
Gen Zs in the office were asked how they felt about the crossbody bag and if they were surprised by this news item. And here's what they said. Crossbody bags are very millennial coded. Gen Zs are all about an under-the-shoulder bag, big or small. Another said, it's not so much that the crossbody bag is bad, it's more so you can spot a millennial out in the crowd with it. It's a millennial identifier.
See, Gen Xers are stoked because if someone thinks we're a millennial, that's a compliment.
Exactly.
We're thrilled. The people who get really upset about these pronouncements from Gen Z are millennials,
so
Jessie.
much.
Yes.
How are you feeling? You don't wear a lot of crossbody bags. You still wear like a backpack like Dora the Explorer.
I was going to ask, how are we feeling about backpacks? They're in. They're
I
still
just
in,
think
right,
they're
guys?
just so, they're just
Chiropractors
they
and
exist.
physios love a backpack.
Yeah,
It's
they
great
exist
for
in
your
another
back.
realm.
But it's not very
far from
convenient for when you
fashion.
need to grab something.
No, I do struggle with that, to be honest.
Because you have to take it off, put it down, pick it up, put it back on again.
The reason I also like crossbody bags, apart from having your hands free, is that it also can give a bit of colour. It's like something going across your body.
I
you know
think
what I mean?
if you are a big busted woman, then the crossbody bag has never worked for you.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like a seatbelt. It doesn't
yeah,
suit.
right.
It just sits between. It kind of emphasises.
Sometimes,
Yeah,
no,
things you might
see,
not
sometimes
want.
I find that it cuts, because I am now a big busted woman, sometimes I find that it cuts, if I feel like I've got pillow bust, it cuts it in half diagonally. I actually think it can be quite complimentary. I have a theory about why Gen Z are so obsessed with telling you
Millennials, yeah.
that you're old. And the difference between now and, say, when we were in our teens or 20s is that now pretty much everybody dresses the same. Like, there are 3 generations of my family, women, who shop at Uniqlo. My mother, me, my daughter, we all buy the same kinds of items.
Your mother and I wear the same shoes, Tevas.
Yes.
We love a Teva.
You do love a Teva. Exactly. My father and my son wear the same kind of runners. So that was very different. Like, if I think about my grandmother growing up and my grandfather, they didn't even wear jeans. So over the last couple of generations, there's been this blurring of, everyone shops at Cotton On, everybody shops at Zara. Whether it's a small label, I'm using those because they're labels that everybody's heard of. It's kind of like it's become very democratized.
Why do you think that is?
It's a great question.
you
I think because we don't want to look old.
Yeah, I think there's greater existential angst about getting old than ever before. So
Yeah, and I think
this-
you've got
yeah.
4 generations who are essentially the broad constructs of it addressing the same. Like, they could be wearing Sambas, they could be wearing jeans, and they could be wearing a graphic T-shirt, right?
Yeah.
And they might wear it all in their own way, but they could all be wearing essentially the same. So what Gen Zs have to do, because they don't want to look like their parents or their grandparents or their older millennial siblings, they have to pick on very small, subtle aspects of it, specific aspects, and, demonize those. And say they're the coders. So it's the socks, it's the bags. It's not like jeans. It's the type of jeans.
Do you think, because I'm not convinced, when I think about growing up or whatever, we've always laid shit on people older than us.
yeah.
That's not entirely new.
Yeah.
Like, I have been giving my mum shit about what she wears since I could speak. I wonder if the difference is that we used to bitch in private and now we bitch on TikTok. Like, is it that now we're just so open about, oh, this makes you look old, this makes you look old?
Well, now you get to watch the reaction. So that millennials are in this very particular moment of realizing they're not the young ones anymore. And that's a very painful space to be, because you go through in this relatively short time, oh, I'm the young one at work, to like, oh, I'm not anymore. And it's jarring, and you're trying to figure it out. And now when people mock your side part or your skinny jeans, because I think Mia's right, it's all about the micro. Although let me tell you, Mia, if I walked in here dressed in the clothes that my 15-year-old daughter wears, oh my God, you people would throw me out onto the street like giant wide leg jeans and teeny tiny crop tops. Like,
I'd love to see
oh my
that.
God, can you imagine? But anyway, that aside, the little markers of it, they see how upset you get because people get furious about this. What do you mean I can't wear my skinny jeans? What do you mean my socks aren't cool? And they get so upset. And that's fun for the young people to see the old people getting upset about stuff. Whereas you used to not see it so much, but now it's like hilarious watching us get upset about socks.
I think the problem is we're just too cool. Like mothers and daughters go and get tattoos together. That's what I did with my daughter.
So
all these
it's
things
not normal.
You talk
You're
about
not
this as if
normal.
this is what everyone's doing. It's not, darling.
But a lot of people, like young people, have always wanted to separate themselves from older people, and older people. You know, I think you're right. We've never resisted aging more, and also old things have become cool. Like there's that kind of ironic. Older people can wear sexy things and wear crop tops if they want to, although I will judge them for it. And younger people want to wear daggy old man shoes or old woman shoes like you, Jessie. And so it's like normcore. It's all blurred.
Gen Z haven't lived through enough to understand all the benefits of a crossbody bag.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very true. It's like maybe we just have the wisdom. We have the wisdom of knowing that certain trends serve us better.
But also when you're Gen Z, you don't have any responsibilities.
No, one person said, I don't use a bag.
You can just put your bag under your arm because you never have to lift your arm if you don't want to.
Yes, and because they don't have to put their phone in their bag because they've never put their phone down. It's just attached to their palm.
We've got a funny Venn diagram in our house because, my daughter, her girlfriend, my son, who's 16, my daughter's girlfriend has this Venn diagram where she's in the middle. She shares clothes with me. She shares clothes with Coco. She shares clothes with Remy. And even though Coco, Remy and I don't dress at all the same, we all share clothes with Jack.
She's a hybrid.
Yeah.
You tried really, really hard. You worked super duper hard. You didn't succeed. In fact, you failed. Should you be commended for effort over result? This is a familiar debate kicked off again by an essay by Adam Grant, who's one of the most prestigious and popular organisational psychologists of our time. We love organisational psychologists, don't we? Because they know things, but they also make us more productive.
He's the loveliest guy, just to name drop just quickly.
Everyone loves him.
I interviewed him for No Filter. He co-wrote Sheryl Sandberg's book that we loved, Option B, about dealing with grief. He's like the cool internet psychologist.
And he also teaches university at the prestigious Wharton School in the US. And he wrote an essay called No, You Don't Get an A for Effort at the end of last year about how he's noticed that his students are now frequently presenting him with their marks and complaining that they should have been higher because they tried really hard. He writes, recently, at the end of a week-long course with the light workload, multiple students had a new complaint. My grade doesn't reflect the effort I put into this course. High marks are for excellence, he writes. In the past, students understood that hard work was not sufficient. An A required great work. And yet today, many students expect to be rewarded for the quantity of their effort rather than the quality of their knowledge. Now, he goes on to explain that this isn't their fault, the kids who are the young people, I guess, who are coming to him and talking about this. He says, we've had a shift that was made in education a while ago, which ended up entering the psyche of the mainstream, that acknowledged that rewarding effort cultivates a strong work ethic in people and often reinforces learning. So it's a good thing to enforce that effort is a really good thing. It makes people want to work hard. But he argues that we might have taken it too far, not just at school or at uni or on whatever course we might be taking, but in the workplace and even in relationships. Jessie, are you an A for effort person?
This made me really think because the respect we have for effort, I broadly agree with. I don't think this is the same as like a participation ribbon, giving everyone a participation ribbon. It's different because this is saying it's about growth mindset and understanding that if it's not fixed. It's not you're smart, you're not, you're good at netball, you're not. It's saying if you try at something, you'll get better, which is true. And I love that, and I think that is how we should teach kids.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than kind of demoralising.
Yes.
It's not rewarding you just for showing up. It's rewarding you for showing up and then
trying
putting
hard.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you had to decide, if you're hiring someone for a job, I reckon you would go the hard worker over the person with natural ability any day. So conscientiousness in terms of like the big
Not
five.
necessarily.
I think the big five personality traits that you look at, like there's openness, there's neuroticism, all of that. Conscientiousness, those people that work hard, and I remember this from school, there were people that worked hard and then there were people that didn't even study and would get really, really good marks, right? I can look at it and see who's more successful. And it was the people who put their head down and developed that work ethic succeeded. And I think that they developed grit, and resilience are really important qualities, and you generally get better at things when you have a good work ethic. In saying that, what this made me think about was how you can work really hard ineffectively. So there have been periods of my life where I know I've done this. In fact, the university example really resonated. I turned up to university, I worked harder than I've ever worked, and I got about 60 in my essays. I just wasn't, because I wasn't doing the work effectively. I was applying this other strategy that I'd always used to this new thing and failing at it.
Because AI hadn't been invented yet, you couldn't cheat.
Putting your hand up and going, but I tried really hard on that.
Are you saying it's an honourable character trait, but it doesn't necessarily
assure you anything?
Yeah, it doesn't assure you
And more
anything.
honourable, which is what Adam Grant says, is to put your hand up and go to your lecturer or whatever. I tried really hard in this. What am I missing? Like, what can I do that's better? And it reminded me of, do you remember, this story blew my mind at the Olympics, Cam McAvoy, the 50-metre Australian gold medalist swimmer, right? He was the first Australian man ever to win the 50-metre freestyle. And he was, I think he was his late 30s, right? Like, he was older than most.
Did this just happen at the last one?
Yeah, this is the last Olympics. And he had been training for years, couldn't win it. And at the beginning of his career, he would do 70 kilometres a week swimming. When he trained for this Olympics, he did 3 kilometres a week. And he just went, I'm going to change how I do it, and I'm going to train in a 25-metre pool. And he won the gold medal. And I think, you know how they say insanity, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results? It's like sometimes sitting down, and this is what Adam Grant's all about, and going, I'm putting in all this effort and it's not paying off, then your effort is misguided. It's misdirected. There must be a better way to do it, right?
Yeah, I think you can see how it's happened because it did start out in parenting. It's funny that when we were talking about this earlier today, Holly and I, who, you know, when your kids get to a certain age, you start getting reports, and in our kids' school reports, we're always interested in the effort and the comments more than the actual marks.
I tell my kids, and I'm sure that having read this now, I should not. I always say that's the mark I care about the most is the effort.
Yeah, the only trouble is in their final exams, there's no little brackets for how hard they tried.
Yeah.
So,
And you don't,
then,
if you ever like need to see a cardiologist, you don't want the one who tried the hardest, do you?
No,
you
and
just
then
want the one who's good at
and
their
then when you
job.
get into the workforce, the person who prepared the hardest and for the job interview doesn't necessarily get the job. So I'm torn about this, but I find that I have it in everything that I do as a parent because it's all about good trying, good waiting, good thinking, good sharing. So we're very focused on effort and intention. But I have noticed this at work as well. I've been a boss for a lot of years now, or about 30, and I've noticed over the last maybe 10 years, there's a lot of sometimes indignant insistence on output as the most important thing versus outcome. We talk about this in our business a lot because, and so do many others, because people will often say, but I tried really hard, we worked really hard, we put a lot of time into this project. And it's like, well, that's great. However, it didn't work. The output might have been huge, but as Jessie said, if the outcome is not good, the actual effort itself doesn't count for anything.
So how do you...
We're in an outcome based society, not output.
But that's tricky, right? Because, and I very much recognise that too, Mia, but the outcome isn't always in your control. Whereas how much
often isn't.
How much effort you put into something is in your control.
Yeah.
But the outcome is not always, because it's affected by lots of other factors, right? And it's interesting to me, we as a society, although we do say that we really value hard work, we really worship natural talent. We really worship like high IQ, natural beauty, like speed, whatever it might be, that people are innately have got it, and things looking effortless. We really like that. Whereas if people...
Certainly when it comes to female appearance, certainly when it comes to women, I think that we...
And even intelligence. We talk all the time about they're smart, they're smart, they're smart. We don't talk about whether or not they've worked really hard to do that.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's partly because of that. You can work really, really hard, and what actually comes from that might not be in your control. So then how do you measure success at all?
Is the praising of effort really about us attempting to teach kids and young people to love the process? Because the process is where you're going to spend 99% of your time.
And also character. I think it's about trying to teach character, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee success. But would I rather that my kids were pleasant in class, did their homework, were polite to their teachers, or that, yes, you know what I mean? Like that's character, right? Rather than that I didn't try, I didn't do anything, I wasn't a productive person or a good team player or whatever, but I got an A because I'm clever. Like, to me, that's not my value system.
All situations are the same. So, for example, trying in a relationship is worth a lot. Some things you can't control, but you can control how much you try. Whereas at work, there are no rewards for trying. I mean, there can be, and we have a lot of shout outs and encouragement for people who try, because that is a character and a core value that you really want. But I think what Adam Grant says, which is the key to this, is what you need to do is say, I tried really hard, which does count for something, but the outcome was not what I wanted and not what I'd hoped for, and feels not true to the amount of effort I put in. Therefore, what could I do differently? So I used to hear a lot, like a writer would say, I wrote this really great story. It was fantastic. It just didn't do well. No one read it. And I'm like, well, then it wasn't great, because what are we missing? Was it the headline perhaps could have been different? Was it the image we chose? Was it the way we promoted it? A story, it's a bit like if a tree falls in a forest. You can try really hard, a story can be really great, but what's the objective measure of that greatness? And in a workplace, it is fairly objective, the measures of greatness.
I think that the point of effort, though, is that it's meant to be internally validating. So what we're trying to teach kids is that you should be proud that you tried. And pride is meant to come from within. It's not meant to be something that your teacher gives you or your boss gives you or whatever. It's something that you go to bed at night and you
internal validation.
I know I tried my best is the internal validation, because you can sit down and do your best and write a book that you believe is really good and put in 3 times as much effort as you ever have with anything you've ever done. And that book might absolutely flop.
Yeah.
And that's because of luck, and it's because of
timing,
opportunity and market and all of the things you can't control. But if you're doing everything for external validation, then it's never going to be that satisfying anyway. So really, I think effort is just something about that's where we should get our self-esteem from.
Yeah, but how does that work in the real world when it comes to trying to get a job, trying to retain that job, or in, doing your exams? It doesn't actually matter how much effort you put in.
I think it does, though. Like if I walk through my life and I go, I didn't get that opportunity, but I know that I tried my absolute best, then there's a real peace with that. There are people I see who don't want to try their best because that's a scary thing to do, because rejection could be on the other side.
Yeah.
It's scary to try.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying that and as parents, we're trying to help our children to get that internal validation so that they're not completely beholden to the external validation of the outside world.
Yeah, which is like the weather. You can't control it. What you can control is what you put into
resilience,
it.
But how do I have a very clear memory of being a early high school kid, and it will shock you both to learn that I was not sporty. like not even a tiny bit. But I quite like running. And we were doing the 100-meter athletics. And I remember going, I am going to run as fast as I can. I'm going to run so hard. I'm going to try so hard. And I was just shit at it.
Yeah.
And I went, well, clearly I'm not a runner. And I just would go and smoke sickies behind the bike shed for the rest of the whole rest of my sports career. I see this in my kids where they put in a lot of effort on a particular essay or whatever and they don't get a good mark and they just kind of go, yeah. Well,
what's the
clearly
point?
I'm no good at that, so I'm just not going to do that. Or I tried really hard to understand that maths thing, but I'm no good at it, so math's dead to me. Like, it's really hard to
There's still a lesson in
give
that,
them
though.
any motivation for things that they don't succeed at. Because most of us are average at most things, right?
Yeah.
Most of us are.
Yeah.
Like, a few people are really good at a handful of things, but most of us are pretty average at most things. So if we're only interested in outcome, then you wouldn't do 90% of the things you've got to do.
Maybe then you go, it's about changing your goals, right? And you go, well, next time I want to come second last in the 100 metres or third last.
It's Friday, so we want to help you set up the weekend with our best recommendations. Holly, please go first.
I am in my big chicken salad era. Because
I love a
chicken,
salad.
right? We talked about it the other week. Maybe chicken with egg. Maybe chicken with legumes. Maybe whatever.
What
Anyway,
else does this chicken
Have
salad
you noticed
have in it?
that eggs, there's a shortage because of bird flu? Has anyone else noticed
Is
I
that?
have
that
noticed
right?
that. I have. It's very
hard.
disheartening.
It's tricky for us vegetarians.
I am recommending from the one and only wonderful Nagi of Recipe Tin Eats fame. Now, if you don't know about Recipe Tin Eats, and of course you do because everybody does, she is the most unbelievable cook. And her two most recent cookbooks, she became really famous for having Recipe Tin Eats online as what we might have once called a blog, became a cult hit. Her last two cookbooks have been like they outsell everything in
Can I
the
ask a dumb
universe.
question?
Ever.
Is it just about things in a tin?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
I thought it was all things that you could make with tins.
No. Recipe Tin Eats just comes from the original name of it, which is like a tin that you keep your recipes in.
Oh,
You see?
not really, but I understand.
The reason everyone loves her is her food is really tasty. It's relatively simple and basic, and it always works.
It
right?
always works, can confirm.
And her most recent book is called Tonight, and I have been making from it this. It's called Cowboy Chicken Salad, and it's like a Mexican chicken salad.
Ooh, so how
And so you
is
marinate
the chicken?
So
Okay.
you get chicken breast, and obviously you're going to need the proper recipe because I'm not. But like,
Do you grill it?
you whack it to
Yeah,
flatten
yeah.
it
With
out,
their little
really
hammer?
like whack,
Yeah.
whack, whack, which is very satisfying to get it nice and flat. Then you marinate, rub it in some stuff, which obviously Nagi will tell you what that is, but it's like, Mexican spices, you marinate it, and then you grill it. And then you have it on this salad, which is like avocado, tomato, corn, black beans. But the thing that makes it amazing, as with any salad, is the dressing. And it's this Mexican dressing with like lime and cumin and whatever. But I make mine with yogurt because too much mayo makes me feel poorly, but you can use mayo if that's your vibe. I just can't tell you how good it is.
I'm going to make that. I love a
and
chicken
how
salad.
satisfying and how much it is like a meal that just fills you up. And if you want less avocado because you're not doing that or whatever, of course you can do whatever you want
Do
with
your
it. But
kids eat it?
yeah, Matilda loved it.
Okay.
Billy won't eat anything
No.
that's vaguely looks like a vegetable, but he ate the chicken part.
Could I
Fabulous.
do it with a barbecued chicken?
Oh,
that
yeah.
I didn't have to cook the chicken.
No, well, you could, but it wouldn't taste quite as good. But yeah, the dressing would hide a million sins.
I'm looking for a lower effort way.
Yeah, it's not that hard
do
though,
it.
I promise. But it's delicious.
Oh, I love that.
Cowboy chicken salad. It is my recommendation. It is all I'm eating this summer.
I texted every mother I know about the movie Night Bitch, which I watched over the long weekend. Have you ever felt so exhausted as a mother that you worried you might actually be turning into a dog? Maybe not.
Not exactly
But
a
that
dog,
is-
but certainly.
Yes.
Yeah.
A wild animal, yes.
That's the premise of Night Bitch. It stars Amy Adams. She was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical. It's been categorised in that genre body horror along with The Substance, but it's not anything like The Substance. Like it's not, if that was too gory for you, there's one tiny scene that's a little bit,
Is it funny?
I think so.
From the trailer,
yes.
it looked almost like a black comedy. Like the concept is funny.
Yeah, exactly. The concept is funny, but also very powerful. It captures something really raw about motherhood that I've never seen on screen before. And the turning into a dog thing, there's no spoilers here, but it's actually just such an amazing metaphor for how primal and feral motherhood can feel. So Amy Adams is a woman who's got a toddler. Her husband is away for work a lot, and it's just so good. It's on Disney Plus. I'm just desperate for everyone to see it so that I
really want to watch it.
I will totally watch it.
Jessie.
My recommendation is also a movie. I went to the movies over the weekend and saw We Live in Time with Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh, and it's exactly what I expected. It's brilliant. It's moving. How long did it take me to cry? I reckon I cried in the first 15 to 20 minutes, which a lot of people have said, and then you managed to cry the whole way along. But what's amazing about it is that at no point does it hit you over the head. There are points where I went, you could have gone harder on that, but it's the subtlety of the pain in a lot of the moments. When the lights came on at the end, I just was heaving crying. Like it is so, so well done. And Florence Pugh steals it, in my opinion. But basically, the broad storyline is that there's Almut and Tobias, who are, it's been called a sort of rom-com vibe. It's them, and then she receives a diagnosis.
Cancer rom-com?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to call it a rom-com, but that's the genre apparently. She receives a diagnosis, and what's new about this is that it explores ambition and motherhood and not wanting to just be remembered as someone's dying mother. Like, what do you want out of that period of your life? And, a lot of people, you know how it's the cliche, no one lays on their deathbed thinking they want to work more. This maybe challenges that a bit and says, what would you want to do? And what might it take from the people you love? So it's
so wanna
really,
see it.
really good.
Is it very distressing?
Well, what do you think?
I mean, it sounds
you cry from the first
horrific
15
to me.
I didn't know. I knew that it was
What did you
about an
think it
illness, but what I didn't know was that it involved that they had a daughter, and that bit killed me. Like that bit there
As a mother.
that was just so
to see it
close.
because I think we talked about this, but I want to go somewhere and just cry.
Oh,
And
you
that's-
will.
I love movies that make me do that, and I love the idea because there are so many movies, from Terms of Endearment to Sleepless in Seattle to whatever, that have dead mums,
Yeah.
right? And it's true that they are always absolutely selfless angels.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the trope, right? So I'm really interested in
I like
seeing that played with.
Yeah, that this
And
challenged that.
What was it like when the lights
Don't see
came
it.
on?
It was not good. I was there with two friends and they just couldn't stop laughing, and then they were like, and they kept saying one line from it that just got me. It wasn't. I cried all the way home, but it felt good. I'm not a crier. Like, I can't remember the last time I cried, and it just felt very cathartic to get that out.
I've got one more that I'll throw in before I forget. I watched it over the holidays. It is one of my favourite TV shows of all time, The Split.
I've never watched
Do you remember
it.
The Split? There were about 4 seasons. It was about a family of women who were all lawyers, a mother and her 3 daughters. 2 of the 3 daughters were lawyers. And it was just a beautiful, interesting, and they were family lawyers. So each week there was a divorce, someone's divorce that they were working on, and it also followed their lives. Anyway, I loved it. It was written by Abby Morgan, who is a phenomenal writer. Anyway, they did a bit of a Christmas special, which was like a 3-episode arc where they got the cast back together, and it was the Split Barcelona. And it was, a bit like 4 Weddings and a Funeral, but in Spain. They all go to Spain for the main character, Hannah, her daughter's getting married. And it's just
Where do you watch
such
it?
escapist viewing on ABC iView. And it's worth it just for the Barcelona scenery. It'll make you want to go to Spain.
It's time for Best and Worst of the Week. This is a part of the show where we share a bit from our personal lives, what's been going on. Holly, your worst, please.
Well, you know what my worst is, Jessie,
I do.
because you got a panicked message from me in the middle of Thursday morning saying, do you know how to get something out of the trash on your computer when you have already emptied it?
I had a bad feeling when I read that message, and I said to you, the good news is you have your worst. And you did.
Because on Thursday morning, so I was in my little office at home, and I was, like when we were going away for the long weekend, and so I was getting ready, and you're like prepping things. I was answering some emails, making sure I had everything in place. And in the most uncharacteristic move of my life, I went, my desktop's a terrible mess on my computer.
Oh, no, I've done this. Yep.
Terrible mess. Just 20 million random screenshots, all that kind of stuff. You know what our desktops look like. So I'm just going to do a little big clean out, just whack it all in the trash. And then in the second incredibly uncharacteristic move, I went, and I'm going to empty the trash because I'm sure I'm taking up a lot of memory on my computer. So I hit empty trash. And then I thought, I've got to just finish that. I've got to just finish that very important proposition for the next book I'm writing that my publisher's waiting on, that I've been working on all summer, that's thousands of words.
I actually feel sick.
I better just finish that before we go away and send it. And then I realized that I had thrown that in the bin on my computer and pressed empty. And I cannot tell you how upset I was.
Did you cry?
I didn't actually cry. I nearly cried. I got very mad. Brent heard me screaming, and so he came out. And he was like, and we were like, when you're getting ready to go away and there's chaos and everyone, you're packing and the kids are blah, blah. And he was like, what? And I was like, ah. And he immediately went into, don't panic, you're panicking. And I was like, get fucked. Yeah. And I was so bad.
Panic is the only appropriate response.
I went to AI. I did, before everyone goes, you can do time machine. I did all that. I went to all my clever AI assistants. I asked them. Then they told me what to do. Then I tried all those things, didn't work. And then I went to, which is also my fault, like my iCloud. I hadn't saved it in the right folder to be on the cloud. I hadn't, updated my this and my that and all that boring stuff. So I hadn't done any of that. So it had really, really gone. We even went to an actual human who works in a computer shop with my laptop, like Carrie Bradshaw in that scene.
Yes.
Saying, can you help me, sir, please, kind sir? I'm desperate. And he said no. And the thing that was so weird about it, and I was so mad with myself, is that I never, it was so uncharacteristic that I'd written this thing in the place that I had in a Word doc that I kept on my desktop. Normally I do all that in a special program that gets saved somewhere. Like, it was just like a series of, that was crazy. So then I tried to talk myself into, well, clearly that was meant to happen.
Yeah, I was going to try and
you know what I mean?
Say that, but I don't believe it.
Yeah, it's the worst thing about that is you want to be mad at someone, like you want to be mad at the technology, you want to be mad, and then it's really upsetting when it just is you.
It was just me. And then I had to obviously spend the rest of the weekend trying to recreate this thing that I'd been working on in parcels all summer long. It was very upsetting. I was very upset. We may recover, we may not. Who knows? Anyway, maybe.
Well, you won't recover the document.
Well, no.
You may emotionally recover.
I may emotionally recover.
In time. I love also that you having to say to your publisher, I'm sorry, I can't hand it in because I deleted it. I mean, that's some fucking Freudian shit.
I know. And you wouldn't believe it, would you? You'd just be like, she's been kicking back all summer long. Anyway, I haven't promised. Anyway, my best is that then we did go away. And the thing that was lovely about it.
You must have been a lot of fun on this holiday.
As you can imagine, I was really, really fun.
And relaxed.
But while I was stressing and trying to remember all the great ideas I had, we made the children do real life things. So, we angst all the time about how the kids don't live in the real world anymore. And I have this sort of policy that I think we've spoken about before, where they have to do at least one real life thing every day, like real life thing that's connected to the world. Anyway, where we went was a bit further down the coast than where we live. And there's this famous and possibly quite dangerous, I apologise to anyone who's going to tell me I'm irresponsible, jump there that kids jump off. Not a rock, not that kind of thing, but kind of like an old platform, and you jump into the ocean, and the ocean's crystal clear and it's gorgeous. And I was like, kids aren't going to do that. Like, kids these days don't take risks. My kids spent
Did you push them?
I would have pushed anyone off anything by this point. I was going to throw myself off there at first. I'm just like, they spent all weekend just throwing themselves off this, having the best time ever. It was like this beautiful, wholesome childhood thing. It was great. Billy, who gets very obsessed about stuff, started counting how many times he'd jumped off this thing. By the end of the weekend, he'd jumped off it 42 times.
My goodness.
It was so much fun. So my worst was my idiocy and my best was the kids jumping off high stuff. Be careful, take precautions, everybody, on both of those topics.
Mia, what was your worst?
My worst and my best were intertwined this week in the way that occasionally these things happen with bittersweet things. I made the announcement yesterday that I am stepping away from No Filter after 10 years and I think 650 something episodes. I've tried to do this a couple of times before, as listeners to No Filter know, and as you guys know, when I've needed a little bit of a breather, I've persuaded some people, including both of you, to step in for occasional episodes. And Kate Langbrook hosted for me over summer last year. But I knew it was time. I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years. It hasn't been possible because there hasn't been anyone who has been able to take it over. It's a big job. You annoying
it's
bitches
a big show.
already have jobs. It's a big show. And I explain in this announcement that I made in the No Filter feed why I decided to do it. And it basically comes down to I've been piling things on my plate for 17 years since starting this company with my husband. And I've finally worked out that if I just keep adding more things, it's not possible.
Yeah.
It's like I've finally understood how time works. And that's part of it. So to be able to do more things and new things, I have to stop doing some of the things I've been doing for a long time. And also creatively, as much of an honour and a privilege as it is to sit in those rooms and have those intense conversations, they are intense. And I've done a lot. I've got much better at interviewing from when I started, my God. And I've learned so much.
650 shows.
Yeah. And I'm proud to say I'm a really good interviewer now, but I've done that. Like the challenge of it isn't there for me anymore, even though every interview is obviously different. I've kind of done it. So I was ready to hand it over. I have persuaded Kate Langbrook to take the mic from me on a permanent basis, and she's the new host. Her first episode is next week. I am the guest because I was easy to book. And we're going to go into it a little bit more about why I decided to leave and just also me interviewing her. It's more of an in conversation really because she's got an amazing story.
For that.
And funnily enough, we recorded this a year ago before it was going to be her first episode of her summer hosting thing. Yep. But I was part of the reason I decided to move away from No Filter. I was in a really bad state then. And we recorded the interview, and then when I heard it, I was like, I can't.
You freaked and you sent it to
Both
a few people.
Yeah,
and
you guys listened.
It was one of my favourite interviews. It was so honest. It was so insightful. I loved it. And I think even just a few months ago, I said, please release that.
Yeah, Kate was really upset that we didn't release it. Anyway, this one's it was a little bit more, I was talking from a wound and now I'm talking from a scar. And I hope you'll find this one better because it's a little more, I have more perspective.
Okay.
And there's kind of more resolution, whereas I was really in it at the time and it was just a bit of a hot mess. So that's both my worst and my best.
How do you feel right now, having actually completed this process? Yeah, right.
Now that I can, people know about it and I can be public, and I've got some lovely messages and it's been lovely looking back at some of the interviews. But I interviewed everybody that I wanted to interview. I ticked every box that I wanted to tick.
Is it hard watching someone else hold your baby?
It is glorious. It is so glorious. There's a word that I used that I learned from someone I interviewed on No Filter who was in a throuple. Rowan Mangan, she's in a throuple with two other women, and she said there's a word. It's the kind of the opposite of jealousy. It's called compersion, where you feel happier from watching someone that you love be loved by someone else. And I feel so happy watching Kate do such an incredible job. I mean, she just happened in those 6 episodes that she did last summer, did the most downloaded episode of the year for No Filter when she interviewed Andy Lee. And not a single skerrick of me was jealous or disappointed that it wasn't made competitive. It's the opposite, because my biggest challenge in running this company is finding people who are better than me and smarter than me so I can do less. And, for me, finding her with No Filter, I'm getting emotional, was beautiful. And I'm just I feel really happy.
Oh, well, I'm going to miss you on there, but if it's going to be anybody, Kate is the person.
She is.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm very excited.
I have learned a lot listening to that show.
Jessie, what was your worst?
My worst is like it's a big one that I've sort of had over the summer, which is this like crisis of ambition is how I would put it. And at the beginning of the year, we've talked about this before, I go full Oprah for a month, and I'm very goal oriented, and I like knowing what I want and having clear goals, and I don't have any. I don't have one. And I've been trying to find them, and I find it very discombobulating. And then my word of the year is creativity, and I've sat down and I've gone, all right, well, come on, what are you going to do? And the sensation is like when you're trying to run in a dream and you can't run. Like I just feel really like not like myself in that way. And
Do you feel like there's an itch that you want to scratch but you don't know what the itch is?
Yes.
Or could this just be for the first time in many years, pretty much since I've known you, you're not spread completely thin and overwhelmed?
It's that, but to be completely honest, I feel I am experiencing boredom. Like
You're unchallenged.
Yeah. Like, and I love going to work. Like I love my job more than I've ever loved my job. The problem with this job is that it actually does finish. So I found it even on the weekend. I'm like, okay, well, I want to do something. Luna's gone down for sleep and I've got a couple of hours. I can't do out loud.
Just spark up the group chat. Yeah. We'll always respond.
Like I can't. That's the thing about a book or an idea or what. Like you've always got.
ends.
That's true.
I read this thing about how motherhood, like your hands are busy, but there's a lot of time to think, and I don't know what I'm meant to be thinking about. I would like to be marinating on something, but I don't have a thing to hold on to.
Are you going to write another book?
I want to, but I don't. Like I kind of have an idea, and then I go, and this is the thing, right? Is that when I go to work, I've designed my life around being incredibly efficient, and I have no guilt around working with a baby. I have no guilt. But I go, I'm efficient, and then I go home to her. The problem with creativity and writing is that it's not very efficient. So the idea of sitting there and writing for 2 hours and taking that time away from Luna and coming up with nothing, I can't justify that. And I'm really struggling with how to explore creativity in a way that doesn't feel incredibly selfish when it's like I sit down at the computer and I'm like, well, I'm going to write a book. But, you know, if I'm going to spend 200 hours writing a book, it better be an award-winning masterpiece.
Oh, wow.
And guess what? Not how
Jessie,
writing
what about
works.
effort?
Yeah.
What about all that Protestant work ethic that you're putting into
it's
it?
about effort.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I've kind of in a weird place with that. But my best is I did an escape room this week with 8 friends. We went and I had forgotten about escape rooms. I got really into them like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And then a friend suggested it and it was so fun. And before you go, you're kind of like, oh, can I be bothered? And before we were all going, someone was dating someone new and you're kind of trying to talk and then you go into the escape room and you're like, well, we can't
Gossip in
We
here.
can't gossip in
I've
them.
never done one.
We have a
What do
job.
they
It's
involve?
so fun.
Like they sound like my worst nightmare.
No. It's they're very mindful because it's like you don't think about anything else. They take your phone. You're just like it's a different part of your brain that you're operating. Everyone's brains work differently. Like it was so fun.
Who's the boss in an escape room?
Well,
Who's
there were
on
8
top
of us.
the escape leaderboard?
We were thrown in and it was senses. It was about your senses. So you had to use all of your senses from smell to sight. There was one where it was completely dark to fit. There was a braille. Where, like all of that. It was amazing.
But who takes the lead?
Well, that's the thing, it
Surely
emerges.
some people are better at those things than others, right?
Yeah.
So it must be competitive in there.
Yeah. So it's like everyone's looking around at different things.
So you
So
have
can
to
you
look for
problem
clues.
solve
Is
and
that, it's like a
clue,
treasure
like,
hunt.
I'm
kind of
terrible
thing,
at
right?
that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Terrible.
And there's lots of red herrings. So when we walked in, there was newspaper all over the walls and there were different random letters circled and you had to work out if it was spelling something or whatever. Like it was so fun.
What does it mean?
But an additional recommendation is that I was speaking to a friend who has just met someone on a dating app and it is an AI dating app and I have become obsessed. It is called Amata, Amata, and she's been on dating apps for years, no luck. She finds this dating app and it's a chat bot. And she goes, hi, I'm looking for someone who blah, 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 and just gave them all this information.
Yeah.
And they said, you might like Jack. And they say, here's Jack. Jack likes this and that and blah. And she goes, yeah, great, looks great. Went on a date with this person and it's just like the best relationship she's had in forever. But people are talking about this dating app because a chat bot takes in all the nuances of what you want and matches you. And like,
they should do that on maps. It should be the robot that matches the people up.
Yeah, get AI to do it because all my single friends are saying Hinge, Tinder, they're having a lot of issues, right? Is that it's just they're not successful at the moment, but this one she was just saying go and try it. So everyone who's single and looking for a dating app, try this one.
We need to do an episode where we get to respond to Jessie's crisis of ambition because I have 25 pieces of useless advice for you.
Oh, I'm excited about that.
We don't have time
really
for that now, but we need to do that. That is all we've got time for Out Louders on our Friday show. Thank you for being with us all week. We will be back in your ears next week, of course. Jessie and Mia, read us out today.
A big thank you to our team, Group Executive Producer Ruth Devine, Executive Producer Emmeline Gazilis. Our audio producer is Leah Porges and video producer is Josh Green.
And a bonus reco from our group EP, Ruth. She's desperate to tell you about a product she believes makes her look less dead in the morning. Out loud as she says, Holm, H-O-L.
Home. I know this brand is great.
Holm. Like Katie Holmes.
Yeah.
Holme, beauty. It's a setting spray and she says it has glow for days. Ooh,
I was just Googling yesterday about wearing white with makeup and it was saying that you've got to put a setting spray on because you've told me this, that you've got to put hairspray on your colour.
So if you're ever wearing white or something light, a jacket or anything, you just use hairspray before you put it on. Yeah. Don't do it when it's on you. And leave it for like 5 seconds or 10 seconds to set and then put it on and then your makeup won't smudge onto it.
It's genius. But setting spray is the other top tip. You put it on, it's not going to transfer.
Bye.